for your meaningful opening speech, Honorable. The following program, I sincerely request Honorable Dr. Sok An once again to moderate this forum. Please, Honorable.
Now I introduce Honorable Mushahid Husan Sajid. He was the youngest editor of a major national English daily, The Muslim. In 1993, he was a leader of Pakistan delegation to the UN Human Rights Commission in Geneva, where he was active as an exponent for ASEAN causes, including the peace process in Cambodia and the right of self-determination for Kashmir and Palestine. He was a Minister of Information and Minister of Tourism. He is now the Secretary General of CAPDI and Chairman of the Pakistan-China Institute. He played an active role in encouraging political parties of Asia to meet and to hold a consultation for mutual benefit. Please, Honorable, you have the floor, please.
In the name of the Almighty, the Lord of all mankind, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Your Excellency Deputy Prime Minister Sok An, your colleagues, Honorable Deputy Prime Ministers, His Excellency the Asian Guru Jose D. Venetia Jr., the architect and founder of ICAP and CAPDI, and of course, I would say the person who has been in the center stage and the eye of the storm in Thai politics, His Excellency Dr. Thaksin Shinawatra, as well as other guests who are present here. It gives me great pleasure to be speaking this morning at this forum, which focuses on the Asian century and the problems and prospects. And I'm also very happy that the chairman of CAPDI, His Excellency Yusuf Kala, is here, especially from Indonesia, the largest Muslim country. I will focus on three broad themes in my presentation this morning. One, the geopolitical context which defines today's deliberations in terms of the Asian century and the challenges and prospects. Second, the region where I come from Pakistan, and the region which is Afghanistan and Pakistan, Southwest Asia, which has been in the eye of the storm for the last 30 plus years. And the third area which I would like to focus on is this region of Southeast Asia where Cambodia is located, and the focus on the Cambodian model of peace and reconciliation and progress, and how we in Southwest Asia, who are undergoing similar trials and tribulations, can learn from the Cambodian model for the future. When we talk of the geopolitical scenario, there are three basic new realities which are very vital in our understanding of the current scenario. The first is that the balance of economic power, of political power, is shifting from the west to the east, something which is already mentioned by Dr. Thaksin Shinawatra and His Excellency Jose D. Venetia, the peaceful rise of China, the Asian century, the resurgence of ASEAN countries, the economic growth rates, and how this balance of power is affecting the world economy. The second reality is also equally important, and that is the reassertion of popular will, of people power, of a period where the day of the dictator is ending and the age of democracy is dawning. And in this context, we have seen how this change is taking place in your own country, sir, in Thailand. It is already taking place in other countries. And I think this reassertion of popular will is demonstrated by the recent election victory of Dr. Thaksin Shinawatра's Red Shirt Party in Thailand. Or the Red Shirt Movement, I would say. Because it's no longer just a party. And talking to Dr. Thaksin Shinawatra last night, I was reminded of two famous Hollywood movies. One was The Comeback Kid, and the other one was To Hell and Back. And you, sir, have experienced both. You are also the comeback kid in the Thailand politics because you've come back with a bang. You have been vindicated in your politics through the people of Thailand who have asserted their popular sovereignty. And you've also seen good and the bad, the difficult periods of the last few years since the coup, whose incidentally the anniversary is today, I think. So I think that this is ironical that when you really were down and out, this is also your finest movement. And I congratulate you for that. And also I would like to say that the third major reality is that the use of force to resolve issues, whether it is in domestic politics, we have seen the example of Thailand, we've seen the example of the Arab countries which His Excellency Hoseri Benicia alluded to, whether it's Egypt or Tunisia or Libya, or in conflict situations. We saw it in Southeast Asia. We are seeing in our part of the world, in Iraq and Afghanistan, the use of force is a failure. And in this Asian resurgence, an important leader is being played by the youth and also women political leaders. And here I would like to recognize the three eminent women sitting in the front, who combine beauty with brains also. Madam, they are also spouses also. Madam Gina Di Venetia, who is the chairperson of the Philippines Women Caucus and also the spouse of the speaker. Madam Annie Sokan, please. And Professor Dr. Dushka from Pakistan, Professor of History. So this shows that in this Asian resurgence, it's an inclusive role of men and women, of young and old, because the society is vibrant, the society is dynamic, and the society is resilient. Coming to Southwest Asia, where I come from, and where I will relate it to the events in Southeast Asia, Pakistan and Afghanistan have been in the eye of the storm since 1979. And 79 was a very seminal year in our Asian history and our region's history, because there were three important developments in that region which continue to dominate and influence the course of events in our part of the world, and in fact the world at large. Three major events took place in 1979. The reform and opening up in China under the leadership of Deng Xiaoping, which transformed China, which took 500 million people out of poverty in China into the middle class mainstream, and which transformed the role of China in the world and Chinese society. The second was the Soviet military intervention and invasion of Afghanistan, which led to a succession of conflicts and confrontations that had profound global consequences. And the third was the Islamic Revolution in Iran, which spawned a new kind of politics in the Middle East, whose impact is being felt even till today. So those three seminal events have cast their influences in our part of the world, in an Asian history and global history as a whole. In 1979, when the Soviet Union invaded and occupied, the last big battle of the 20th century, which ended the Cold War, began, with Pakistan as the frontline state, with support from the United States, the European countries, the Middle Eastern countries. A lot of money was pumped in, and that spawned a new kind of jihad or fight against what was termed as the evil empire. 200,000 Afghan Mujahideen were trained. 20,000 Arab volunteers were trained, including Osama bin Laden and Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri. And about $5 billion were pumped into the region via Pakistan for the biggest covert operation after World War II. And that was a very transforming movement. And after 10 years, when the Soviet Red Army was defeated and they exited Afghanistan, the Western countries forgot about the region, about Afghanistan and Pakistan, and the region had a civil war for 12 years, till 9/11 took place, and then the interest was through a rediscovery of the region of Afghanistan and Pakistan. And there have been tremendous costs of this conflict also, of the current conflict, which has also had profound consequences, and also in consequences to what Dr. Thaksin Shinawatra very well focused on, the question of rule of law, which is the central basis of any modern civilized society. If we look at the costs of the current war, and I think the costs for the region also are very important. In Pakistan, we have, since 9/11, again, the first big battle of the 21st century has been with Pakistan in the front line. And no country has sacrificed more in terms of human sacrifice, in terms of economic sacrifice in the campaign against terrorism, because we are the biggest victims of terrorism in the region and otherwise. In the last 10 years, according to a study of the Brown University, sir, your alma mater, which was carried out in June 2011, and this study is in the website, 40,000 Pakistanis have lost lives because of terrorism, 30,000 civilian population, men, women and children, and 10,000 from the security forces. Our economy has suffered to the tune of roughly $70 billion in the last 10 years. Afghanistan has suffered about 45,000 people dead in the war on terror since 9/11. And the other costs were before that. And in the original Afghan war, 3.5 million Afghans became refugees and settled in Pakistan, of which 2.5 million are still living in Pakistan, which is the largest refugee population ever in the history of the world. And as a consequence of the war on terror, within Pakistan, there are 2 million people who are internally displaced because of terrorism, because of bombings, because of destruction, because of violence. And in terms of assistance provided and the costs, the United States is spending roughly, and there was a book by Joseph Stiglitz, the Nobel Peace Laureate, the $3 trillion war. The $3 trillion war, that the US costs have been roughly, since 9/11, $3 trillion all told in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And currently, the United States is spending $4 billion every week on the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. $4 billion every week. These are figures from the United States. And in terms of assistance to Pakistan, the United States has promised Pakistan, in terms of assistance, civil and military, $12.5 billion for the next 5 years, which comes to roughly 3 weeks expenditure that the US is spending on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So this has been a horrendous human cost, and that is why we are looking forward at the ways for durable peace, reconciliation, a dialogue that can end that, the travails and turmoil in our part of the world. And that is why now I would like to focus on what we can learn from the experiences in Southeast Asia. What I call the Cambodian model. What does it have to offer? What are its features? What are the similarities between the situation in Southwest Asia in 2011 and Southeast Asia in the 1970s? And what are the lessons that need to be learned from the Cambodian model? Because we always talk of models in the past, solutions which were churned out from Washington or London or Brussels. The time has changed now. With the Asian century unfolding before us, it is Asian hands which have to fashion together a new destiny for Asia. And I think Asian gurus or statesmen like Jose de Venecia, and I really feel that he is no longer a politician, he is no longer a statesman, he is an Asian guru, because this is the tradition. Who were the old wise men, in the tradition of Confucius and Mencius, who would give the guidance. And sir, your role is extraordinary in that, as a bridge builder, in bringing people, cultures, continents and countries together for a better future. So I would like to start with what are the specific features, and I think since these are specific ones, I've noted there are 6 features of the Cambodian model which I think are very relevant. Then we will see there are the similarities between Southwest Asia and Southeast Asia. Number 1 is this: it has been a UN brokered peace after the end of foreign intervention in civil war. That's number 1. Number 2, it was followed by free elections and a ceasefire. Number 3, and this is quite unique, and I'm very happy that His Excellency Khupat Rasme, our friend and leader of ICAP, is here, who is a leader of FUNSIN-PEC also, and who is part of this Cambodian model because it's part of reconciliation. 4 different factions were amalgamated into one Cambodian national army. I mean, you were talking of Khmer Rouge, you were talking of other people. The 4th one was a national reconciliation via a coalition government. The 5th one was, there was the rule of law. This is what Dr. Thaksin Shinawatra was saying. Rule of law. A trial of war criminals by an extraordinary tribunal called the Extraordinary Criminal Court, which is still ongoing, by the way. And the 6th one was, and I think that is also very relevant, peace within the country, which is a prerequisite for development and progress, and peace without, peace with neighbors as well. And I think that is extremely important. So what are the similarities between Southwest Asia and the region where we come from, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Southeast Asia, the 70s war and the current one? Because there has been destabilization, there has been destruction, there has been drugs culture, and those similarities are rather uncanny in my view. And I've noted at least 6 similarities in the conflicts in this region where Cambodia was in the eye of the storm in the 70s, Southeast Asia, Indochina, Vietnam and so forth, and our region now, Southwest Asia, Pakistan, Afghanistan, that region. Number 1, both the wars, the one in Cambodia in Southeast Asia and the one in currently, used massive military might against ideological foes. That said, it's an ideological struggle. Then it was termed as communism. Now it is Al-Qaeda, or they call it extremism, Islamic extremism. So both was couched as ideological struggles. Both the regions, number 2, Cambodia here, Southeast Asia, and Southwest Asia are part. Both the regions were victim of geopolitics. They did not cause these events. They were victims of their location, of their strategic location of geopolitics, and they suffered due to external intervention. 3, the third similarity. both regions suffered brutalization, devastation, destruction due to wars, bombings, killings. You know the term killing fields in Cambodia, which spawned a new kind of ideological extremism in the region. The Pol Pot regime in Cambodia and the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. Those kinds of opposites. The reaction, the result, the consequence of the devastation and destruction. Number 4, similarity. Because I'm speaking to an audience of distinguished intellectuals and scholars, led by academician Sokan. Mr. Sokan is an outstanding and unique person because he is also mixing his drinks. He's not just a politician, he's a brilliant diplomat, he's an intellectual, and he's also a scholar. So we learn from you, sir. Number 4, similarity. Both the regions, Southeast Asia, Cambodia I'm talking about, and our region, Afghanistan, Pakistan, suffered divisive, especially Afghanistan, suffered divisive civil wars after hasty and messy military exits. We know how the US exited from Vietnam on 30th April 1975 and from Cambodia on 17th April 1975. Helicopters and hovering and so forth, people running around. And it was a very messy, hasty military exit which created chaos, a vacuum. And that's what happened after the Soviet military exit also in 1989, civil war. And then they forgot about the region. So this was the consequence of foreign intervention and its aftermath, because there was no orderly, well thought out, well planned transition from the external intervention to the new order. And in the fifth one was, common thing was, in Southeast Asia they said the Vietnamization is taking place, which actually led to escalation of the war to Cambodia, which had nothing to do with the war. And the secret bombing started of Cambodia. In our part now they say we are going to start, the term is Afghanization, and that is also leading to escalation of the war into Pakistan territory with bombings through the drone strikes. So there are uncanny similarities between the two situations. And the sixth aspect which is relevant in the terms of the Cambodian model and the application to South West Asia is that in Vietnam, when the US policy was failing, Cambodia was blamed. Oh, it's the Ho Chi Minh Trail, there are sanctuaries there. Cambodia was blamed, and Cambodia, the war, we reached here. In Afghanistan, when there's a policy failure, Pakistan is being blamed. It's the failure of... So, you know, these are 6 similarities which are very, very relevant between Southeast Asia, Cambodia in the 1970s, and now Afghanistan in the year 2011 in the 21st century. So, what are the lessons? What can we learn from the Cambodian model in this, the 21st century? Because we have to now, as I said, look into Asia, because Asian hands have to reshape the destiny of Asia. And here I again come to 6 important lessons which are relevant for Afghanistan, for our region, based on the Cambodian model. And one of them has already been mentioned by our worthy chairman, Mr. Yusuf Kala from Indonesia, who is himself the architect of the peace process. The first one is, there has to be a change in this mindset. This mindset which sees the situations in a zero-sum game or a winner-take-all. That, okay, one side has to lose, one side has to win. That is no longer, it's neither black and white, yes or no. It is not like that. This zero-sum game mindset, this winner-take-all mindset has to end. And that ended in Cambodia. That's why you had a success there. That's the first lesson. The second lesson of the Cambodian model, relevant to Afghanistan, to our region, when we are talking of the way forward for peace, for development, for progress, for reconciliation. And Excellency Jose Di Benicio, I congratulate you on your historic launch of the Asian Peace and Reconciliation Council, because that is the way forward. You are presenting a way forward that let there not be vacuums, let there be dialogue, consensus instead of confrontation. The second one lesson is recognize and respect all stakeholders and make them partners in the development of your country, which you have done in Cambodia and which we are seeking for our region. The third lesson of the Cambodian model is the proactive role of the international community. In the case of Cambodia, it was the United Nations, which played a very important role. And I recognize Mr. Nopidam, the former Foreign Minister of Thailand. He is still very dashing. Foreign Minister should be dashing. You're still very young and handsome and dashing, sir. And I'm sure when Thaksin Shinawatra becomes Prime Minister of Thailand again, as we say, in Inshallah, God willing, you will resume your position. So, in the case of Afghanistan, it should also include not just the United Nations, but the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Conference. And that Organization of Islamic Conference includes 57 Muslim countries, and they have a big stake, so that has to be involved in the situation. The fourth lesson from the Cambodian model for Afghanistan, for our region, which has been the eye of the storm for the last 30 years, is the essence of what I call Mandela's worldview. Have a big heart, have a big vision, have the ability to forgive and forget and move on. When I was Minister for Information and Tourism in Pakistan, I had the honor of being Minister in waiting to President Mandela when he visited Pakistan in 1999. And when I got autograph from his famous autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, I asked him, what is the most difficult thing for a politician? He said he has to overcome the bitterness of the past. He cannot hold grudges about the wrongs that were committed to him. And then when that person or personality, and is a unique person in human history, has the ability to rise above his person, above his personal suffering, as Excellency Jose Di Benicio said, 27 years of isolation as a political prisoner on Robben Island. And the first thing when he is released, he welcomes his captors. He welcomes his tormentors and says, let us work together for a better tomorrow. And I think that is the essence of statesmanship of the highest order. And that has been demonstrated in Cambodia, because they have moved on with a healing touch, bringing all the conflicting factions, groupings, armed groups together. And that has been very, very important in the Cambodian model. The fifth element of the Cambodian model, I think, is very relevant. Be very creative and politically innovative. And here I would give credit to Prime Minister Hun Sen and also Deputy Prime Minister Sokhan for the kind of creativity that we saw in Cambodia. For example, it was unique in world history. At one point after the 1993 elections, which were sponsored after the ceasefire and the United Nations, there were two prime ministers of the same country. This has never happened before. Co-prime minister, no, this is unique. It's like having Dr. Thaksin and Abhiset together as prime minister. It's unthinkable, but only the Cambodians could do it. I think it's amazing. That is the Cambodian model. 2 prime ministers for a transition period, for a temporary period, because it was an extraordinary situation. And then they restored their monarchy. The monarchy which had been ousted, removed, overthrown, exiled. The king was back, Norodom Sihanouk. It was restored, and now his son is there as the king. And the third thing, which is very unique and innovative, apart from this 2 prime ministers, the monarchy's restoration, this extraordinary criminal court to try the remnants of the Pol Pot regime. It's never happened before that this kind of a court created within Cambodia, but ensuring the sovereignty of Cambodia. I think this was creativity at its best, and it's working. It's working in Cambodia. So I think normally there would be this International Criminal Court in The Hague and so forth, and sending people to trial outside their country. But they said, no, we'll have it inside our country with international cooperation, but with certain rules of the game that meet the demands of the international community as well as the needs of Cambodian sovereignty. And I think this was an excellent combination, a fusion, if you will, of international law and of Cambodian law. So this kind of creativity and innovation worked. And of course, the 6th element of the Cambodian model is that very important: the willingness to embrace rivals and former foes. Inclusive politics. What Jose de Venecia, His Excellency, has just mentioned about this grand reconciliation of the red shirts and the yellow shirts. I think it will be the mother of all reconciliations, if I may say, if it takes place. But I think His Excellency Jose de Venecia has the capacity to do that, because we have to understand in countries where there are polarized politics, and I come from a country where there has been politics of polarization. No one person, no one party, no one institution can do it. We have had military coups in Pakistan, but that is not the solution. They exacerbate the situation. They aggravate crisis. So there has to be an assertion of popular will, of public opinion, which is inclusive of all strands, all hues, all ideologies of opinion, so they can be a rainbow coalition, an inclusive one. And that was worked out in Cambodia. What is inspiring about the Cambodian model is that it is a made in Asia model. It's homespun. And ultimately, what is the final result? That it has worked. Because you judge a model, you judge a situation, you judge an example, you judge an experience on the basis of whether it's workable or feasible or not. Cambodia has shown, yes, it is workable. Yes, it is feasible. And yes, it has demonstrated a certain success and put Cambodia on the path of peace, of reconciliation, and the way the figures are showing, of progress and prosperity. So it's been a worthwhile experience coming this morning to the Royal Academy. I thank you all for your interest and your patience, and I think that we are very happy that we have this distinguished podium of outstanding statesmen from Asia, and I'm sure that some of these best brains of Asia can really put Asia on this new path in the 21st century of not just political reconciliation, not just peace, but also economic development, so that the fruits of democracy deliver development to the people. And here I would say, yesterday my wife and my son, we were in Bangkok, and we could see with the popularity of Dr. Thaksin Shinawatra that his tenure in office delivered good for the people of Thailand, and that is why they brought him back with a bang. Thank you very much.